The Galactic Council, a governing body revered across the galaxy, was comprised of representatives from the most advanced and powerful alien species. Their influence was unmatched, their decisions shaping the fate of countless worlds. For centuries, the Council had maintained peace through a delicate balance of diplomacy and the ever-present threat of overwhelming military force. They believed that their wisdom and power were enough to keep any potential conflicts at bay. To them, the galaxy was a well-ordered place, and any species that fell under their watch would either adhere to their rules or face swift consequences. Among the many species under the Council's jurisdiction, humanity was seen as a curious anomaly. A young race, by galactic standards, humans were known for their adaptability and resilience. But to the Council, these traits were overshadowed by what they perceived as an inherent aversion to conflict. The humans, it seemed, were always eager to negotiate, to find peaceful resolutions to disputes, even when they were clearly at a disadvantage. The Council viewed this preference for diplomacy not as a sign of wisdom, but as a weakness, a fear of war and the harsh realities that came with it. This perception was reinforced time and again in the Council's dealings with humanity. Whenever tensions arose, humans would propose talks, offer compromises, and seek to de-escalate situations before they could spiral into violence. The Council's members, species that had long ago mastered the art of war, found this approach almost quaint. They mistook humanity's restraint for cowardice, their diplomacy for a lack of resolve. In the Council's eyes, humans were a peaceful, non-threatening species that would bend before they would ever break. This belief became a widely accepted truth among the Council's members, solidifying humanity's reputation as a species more likely to retreat than to fight. As time passed, tensions began to rise between humanity and a powerful alien empire known for its brutal conquests. This empire, driven by expansionist ambitions, saw humanity's worlds as ripe for the taking. They had little interest in diplomacy, and no regard for the Council's doctrines of peace. Their forces began probing the borders of human space, testing defenses, and preparing for what they saw as an inevitable war. Human leaders, aware of the looming threat, reached out to the Galactic Council, pleading for support and protection. They hoped that the Council's influence would deter the Empire from initiating full-scale conflict. But the Council, so entrenched in their view of humanity as a pacifist species, dismissed these pleas. They believed that the humans, faced with the might of the alien empire, would capitulate rather than fight. The Council reasoned that any military support would be unnecessary, even wasteful. In their judgment, humanity would surrender its colonies and accept whatever terms were offered, avoiding a war they were clearly too afraid to wage. This decision, made in the grand chambers of the Council, was final. They would not intervene. The Council's arrogance in this matter was palpable. They had maintained peace in the galaxy for so long that they could not conceive of a scenario where their judgment might be flawed. They saw themselves as the ultimate arbiters of galactic affairs, their decisions infallible. The idea that humanity, a species they considered weak and fearful, might actually possess the resolve and strength to defend itself never crossed their minds. To them, the humans were an open book, predictable and easily controlled. This overconfidence blinded the Council to the reality of the situation. They failed to recognize the growing determination within humanity, the quiet resolve that was hardening in the face of external threats. The humans, aware that they stood alone, were not as fearful as the Council believed. Instead, they were preparing for the worst, even as they continued to pursue diplomatic solutions. The Council's refusal to act only deepened humanity's resolve, fueling a desire to prove that they were not the cowards the galaxy believed them to be. In the Council's chambers, discussions moved on to other matters, the fate of humanity considered settled. They turned their attention to other, more pressing issues, confident that their decision regarding the humans would hold. They did not see the storm that was brewing, the quiet preparations that were taking place on Earth and its colonies. The Council's failure to grasp the true nature of humanity would soon lead to a conflict that would shake the galaxy to its core. The invasion began with little warning. The alien empire, known for its ruthless conquests, launched a calculated and devastating assault on human colonies scattered across the outer reaches of known space. Their warships, bristling with advanced weaponry, descended upon these settlements like a storm. The initial strikes were precise and overwhelming, targeting communication hubs, defense grids, and supply lines with an efficiency born of centuries of warfare. The Empire's strategy was clear: crush human resistance quickly and decisively, leaving no room for retaliation. Human colonies, spread thin and largely unprepared for an attack of this magnitude, struggled to respond. Their defenses, designed more for deterrence than actual warfare, crumbled under the sheer power of the invaders. In the first hours of the assault, entire settlements were obliterated, their populations left to flee or face annihilation. The alien invaders, cold and methodical, showed no mercy. Their ships moved from one target to the next, leaving behind nothing but smoldering ruins and shattered lives. On the ground, human forces fought desperately to hold back the tide. Local militias, composed of civilians with minimal training, took up arms alongside the few professional soldiers stationed in the colonies. They fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. The alien soldiers, equipped with cutting-edge armor and weapons, advanced with terrifying precision. Their tactics, honed through countless campaigns, left little room for human defenders to regroup or mount a counterattack. Each skirmish ended the same way, with human forces in disarray, and the alien empire tightening its grip on another colony. As reports of the invasion spread, panic began to take hold across human space. The images and accounts coming from the front lines were grim. Cities reduced to ashes, refugee ships fleeing under fire, and pleas for help that went unanswered. The scale of the devastation was staggering, and the human leadership scrambled to find a way to stop the advance. But with each passing day, the situation grew more dire. The alien empire showed no signs of slowing down, and their forces were already preparing to push deeper into human territory. Despite the mounting losses, human leaders clung to the hope that diplomacy might still offer a way out. They continued to reach out to the Galactic Council, pleading for intervention. Messages were sent to the alien empire as well, offering terms for a ceasefire, seeking any avenue that might halt the destruction. But these efforts were met with silence or outright rejection. The alien empire had no interest in negotiations. Their goal was conquest, not compromise. And the Galactic Council, observing the situation from a distance, remained indifferent. To the Council, the invasion was unfolding exactly as they had predicted. They saw the human colonies falling one by one and interpreted this as confirmation of their belief that humanity was incapable of waging a serious war. The Council members, secure in their own territories, viewed the conflict as a minor skirmish in the grand scheme of galactic affairs. They believed that the humans would soon recognize the futility of resistance and surrender, just as the Council had anticipated. In their eyes, the outcome was inevitable. This indifference from the Council only deepened the sense of isolation and desperation among human leaders. They knew that without external support, the chances of repelling the invaders were slim. But even as they faced overwhelming odds, the human spirit of resilience began to stir. In hidden bunkers and remote command centers, discussions were held on how to fight back. Plans were drawn up, and preparations began, even as the official channels continued to push for a peaceful resolution. The human leadership understood that time was running out, but they were not yet ready to give up. The alien empire, emboldened by their initial successes, pressed their advantage. They expanded their operations, targeting more heavily populated human worlds closer to the core systems. The devastation wrought by these attacks sent shockwaves through the human populace. Entire cities were wiped off the map, millions displaced or killed, and still, the alien forces marched forward. The human military, already stretched thin, found itself unable to protect every colony, every outpost. Priorities had to be made, and sacrifices became inevitable. Amid the chaos, human leaders faced an agonizing choice: continue pursuing diplomacy, which seemed increasingly futile, or reveal their hidden strength and risk total war. The Council's lack of response, coupled with the alien empire's relentless aggression, made it clear that a decision had to be made. The hope for a peaceful resolution was fading fast, but the cost of revealing their true capabilities weighed heavily on those in power. They knew that once they crossed that line, there would be no turning back. As the invasion continued, the alien empire began to sense that something was changing. The human resistance, though still largely ineffective, was becoming more coordinated. The invaders encountered pockets of fierce resistance, where human soldiers fought with a determination that seemed to defy the odds. These isolated victories, though small, hinted at a deeper resolve within the human ranks. The Empire's commanders took note but remained confident in their ultimate victory. The Galactic Council, still watching from afar, paid little attention to these developments. They remained convinced that humanity's days were numbered, that the humans would soon bend the knee to their conquerors. But as the Council continued to dismiss the possibility of a human resurgence, they remained oblivious to the quiet preparations that were unfolding beneath the surface. Humanity was not as weak as they had been led to believe, and the alien empire was about to face a challenge far greater than they had anticipated. The situation had reached a breaking point. The relentless assault by the alien empire had pushed humanity to the edge of annihilation. Despite their best efforts, the diplomatic channels had failed to yield any results. Every plea, every offer for peace, had been met with cold indifference or outright rejection. The human leadership, gathered in their last secure bastions, knew that the time for words had passed. If humanity was to survive, they would have to fight back with everything they had, and they had more than the galaxy realized. The decision to abandon diplomacy was not made lightly. For years, humanity had been developing advanced military technology in secret, preparing for a moment when they might need to defend themselves against an existential threat. The alien empire's invasion had been the catalyst that turned those preparations into action. The leaders of Earth and its colonies, realizing that survival now depended on the strength of their arms, gave the order to unveil their hidden arsenal. It was a decision born of desperation, but also of resolve. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. As the command was given, fleets of warships that had been hidden in deep space or camouflaged within asteroid fields began to move. These were no ordinary ships. They were equipped with the latest in human ingenuity, cloaking technology, hyper-advanced shields, and weapons systems that had been tested in the most extreme conditions. The alien empire, confident in their victory, had no idea that humanity had such capabilities. The Galactic Council, too, was oblivious, having long dismissed the notion that humans could pose a serious military threat. The unveiling of this fleet was a moment of both awe and terror. As the ships emerged from their hidden locations, they assembled into a formidable armada, a sight that would have sent chills through even the most battle-hardened commanders of the alien empire. These warships, sleek and bristling with power, were the culmination of years of covert research and development. Alongside them were squadrons of advanced fighters, drones, and other unmanned vehicles, all ready to be unleashed upon the invaders. The human crews, highly trained and fiercely determined, took their positions, knowing that the fate of their species rested on their shoulders. They had been preparing for this moment, honing their skills in simulations and secret training exercises, waiting for the day when they would be called upon to defend their home. Now that day had come, and they were ready to strike back with a vengeance. The first counterattack was launched with surgical precision. Human forces, using their newly revealed arsenal, targeted key strategic points held by the alien empire. Massive space stations that had served as command centers for the invasion were suddenly under attack, their defenses overwhelmed by the sheer firepower of the human fleet. Planetary bases, thought to be secure, were decimated in coordinated strikes that left no time for the alien forces to mount a defense. The humans struck with a speed and effectiveness that took the invaders completely by surprise. The alien empire, which had been so confident in its superiority, was thrown into chaos. Their forces, spread out across the human colonies, were now facing a level of resistance they had not anticipated. Entire fleets were wiped out before they could even react, their ships torn apart by weapons they had never encountered before. Ground forces, previously unchallenged, found themselves under assault from human infantry equipped with cutting-edge technology, capable of turning the tide of any battle. As the counteroffensive gained momentum, human forces began to reclaim lost territory. Worlds that had been under the boot of the alien invaders were liberated, their populations rising up in support of the human military. The alien empire, reeling from the sudden and devastating losses, was forced to retreat from several key positions, abandoning their conquests in a desperate attempt to regroup. What had once seemed like a certain victory for the invaders was rapidly turning into a nightmare. The success of the human counteroffensive sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the human resurgence spread like wildfire, reaching even the distant corners of space where the Galactic Council observed the unfolding events. The Council, which had so confidently dismissed humanity as a minor player, was now faced with the undeniable reality that they had severely underestimated this species. The reports from the front lines were staggering. The humans were not only holding their ground, but they were also pushing back, dealing blows to the alien empire that no one had thought possible. In the halls of the Galactic Council, discussions turned from indifference to concern. The human counteroffensive was unlike anything they had expected. The technology on display, the tactics employed, the sheer determination of the human forces, it all suggested a level of military capability that the Council had not anticipated. There were those within the Council who began to question their earlier decisions, wondering if they had made a grave mistake in ignoring humanity's pleas for help. The galaxy, it seemed, was witnessing the emergence of a new power, one that would not be easily contained. The tide of the war had begun to shift, and with it, the balance of power in the galaxy. The alien empire, once so dominant, was now on the defensive, struggling to contain the human counteroffensive that showed no signs of slowing down. The humans, having revealed their hidden strength, were relentless in their pursuit of victory. They knew that this was their moment, a chance to not only survive but to prove to the galaxy that they were not to be trifled with. The human offensive began with a precision that stunned the galaxy. Fully mobilized and equipped with the hidden arsenal they had kept in reserve for just such a moment, human forces launched a series of coordinated strikes across multiple fronts. Every attack was meticulously planned, with each target chosen to maximize impact and disrupt the alien empire's operations. Supply lines that had been the lifeblood of the invasion were severed in a matter of hours. Command centers, previously thought to be impenetrable, were obliterated in swift, surgical strikes. Fleet formations, the backbone of the Empire's military might, were shattered before they could even mount a defense. The alien empire, once the undisputed power in the galaxy, was thrown into complete disarray. Their leadership, which had never anticipated such a formidable response from humanity, was suddenly scrambling to adapt. Fleets that had been on the offensive found themselves retreating, their ranks decimated by the relentless human assault. The Empire's commanders, once so confident in their superiority, were now issuing frantic orders to regroup, but it was clear that they were losing control of the situation. Their troops, demoralized by the unexpected and devastating losses, began to falter. The Empire's once unbreakable resolve was crumbling under the weight of the human onslaught. As the human offensive gained momentum, the Galactic Council, previously indifferent to humanity's plight, found themselves forced to reconsider their stance. The reports from the front lines painted a picture of a species that was far more capable and dangerous than anyone had imagined. The council chambers, once filled with dismissive chatter about humanity's supposed weakness, were now the site of heated debates. Some council members, shocked by the scale of the human military success, argued that it was time to support the humans, to align with them against the alien empire that had overstepped its bounds. They saw an opportunity to balance power in the galaxy by backing a new and formidable ally. However, not all were convinced. Others within the council expressed concern over the implications of a militarily powerful humanity. If humans were capable of such a rapid and effective offensive against an empire as mighty as their current foe, what would stop them from becoming a threat to the balance of power in the future? The prospect of a humanity that could rival the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy was unsettling to those who had long viewed the Council as the ultimate authority. The debates grew more intense as the Council grappled with the new reality unfolding before them. Meanwhile, on the front lines, human forces continued their advance with an intensity that left no room for doubt about their determination. Every victory was hard-earned, but the humans showed no signs of slowing down. Driven by a deep-seated anger at the invasion of their worlds, a survival instinct that refused to let them be extinguished, and an unwavering desire to protect their home, they pushed forward relentlessly. Their tactics were bold, often risking everything to secure a critical objective, but it was this very willingness to sacrifice that set them apart. They fought not just to win, but to ensure that their enemies understood the full cost of their aggression. As the offensive continued, the alien empire's losses mounted. Strategic outposts fell, one after another, cutting off vital communication and logistics chains. The Empire's fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, was now a shadow of its former self, scattered and in disarray. The remaining commanders struggled to rally their forces, but the momentum had shifted decisively in humanity's favor. Desperation began to seep into the ranks of the alien troops, who had once believed in the invincibility of their empire. Now they faced a human military that seemed unstoppable, driven by a purpose and a resolve that defied their expectations. The Galactic Council, still locked in debate, watched with growing concern. The human offensive was not just turning the tide of the war, it was redefining the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans, once seen as a minor, peace-loving species, had emerged as a formidable force, capable of challenging even the most powerful empires. The Council had to decide quickly: would they support the humans, risking a shift in power dynamics that could destabilize the galaxy, or would they remain neutral, hoping that the alien empire could recover and restore the status quo? The decision was not an easy one, and the stakes had never been higher. As the discussions dragged on, the human forces pressed their advantage. They knew that every victory brought them closer to securing their future, and they were willing to pay any price to achieve that goal. The offensive was not just about reclaiming lost territory, it was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity would not be pushed around, and they would not back down in the face of aggression. Their resolve had been underestimated, and now, their enemies were paying the price. The final phases of the offensive saw human forces launching daring operations deep into enemy territory, targeting the heart of the alien empire. These were not just battles of attrition, they were calculated moves designed to break the will of the empire's leadership and force a surrender. The human commanders, now confident in their strategy and the capabilities of their forces, directed their fleets with precision, cutting through the last of the empire's defenses. The end was in sight, and humanity was poised to emerge victorious. The final stages of the war came to a head as human forces closed in on the alien empire's capital. The once proud empire, now a shadow of its former self, had been pushed to the brink. Its fleets, once feared across the galaxy, were shattered and scattered. The alien leadership, cornered and desperate, could only watch as the human armada bore down on their last stronghold. The human commanders, determined to bring a decisive end to the conflict, launched a final assault with all the might they had mustered. In a coordinated strike, the human fleet overwhelmed the remaining defenses of the alien capital. Advanced weaponry, perfected over years of secret development, tore through the last of the Empire's ships. Ground forces, supported by orbital bombardments, swiftly moved in to secure key locations. The alien leadership, realizing that resistance was futile, was forced to surrender. The empire that had once sought to conquer humanity was now brought to its knees, its capital captured, and its power broken. The remnants of the alien fleet, those few ships that had survived the onslaught, were either destroyed in the final battles or fled into deep space, never to return. With the war effectively over, the galaxy turned its attention to the aftermath. The Galactic Council, once so dismissive of humanity, convened in an emergency session to discuss the implications of this unexpected turn of events. The members of the Council, representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy, were forced to confront the reality that they had gravely underestimated humanity. The humans, far from being the peaceful, conflict-averse species the Council had assumed them to be, had demonstrated a capacity for war that rivaled, and in some cases exceeded, that of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The discussions within the Council were tense. Some members argued that the Council had no choice but to acknowledge humanity as a significant power, one that could no longer be ignored or sidelined. Others expressed concern about what this meant for the future balance of power. A militarily powerful humanity posed questions that the Council was not yet prepared to answer. How would they integrate this new power into the existing order? What safeguards could be put in place to ensure that humanity did not become a threat to the stability of the galaxy? The Council's debates revealed a deep unease, as the members grappled with the consequences of their earlier misjudgments. Meanwhile, on Earth and across the liberated colonies, humanity celebrated its hard-won victory. The sense of relief was palpable, but so too was the somber recognition of the cost. Human leaders, gathering to plan for the future, reflected on the decisions that had led them to this point. They understood that in revealing their military strength, they had also revealed much about themselves, both to their allies and their enemies. The war had forced them to show their hand, and while it had brought victory, it also came with the burden of new responsibilities and potential threats. There was an understanding among the human leadership that they could no longer return to the way things were before. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of, and that knowledge would shape future interactions with other species. The leaders discussed the need for diplomacy, not from a position of weakness, as the Council had once assumed, but from a position of strength. They knew that their newfound status as a formidable military power would bring both respect and fear, and navigating this new reality would require careful strategy. The war had left scars, both physical and emotional, and rebuilding would take time. But there was also a sense of pride in what humanity had accomplished. They had stood against a force that sought to erase them, and they had prevailed. The sacrifices made by so many had not been in vain, and now, humanity had a place in the galaxy that could not be denied. The leaders pledged to honor those sacrifices by ensuring that the future they had fought for would be one of peace and stability, even as they prepared to defend against any future threats. As the Galactic Council continued to debate and humanity began to rebuild, it became clear that a new era was dawning. The Council, now wary of humanity's potential, began to rethink its approach to galactic governance. No longer could they afford to overlook or underestimate any species, least of all the humans. The Council's role would need to evolve, and how they chose to engage with humanity in the future would determine the shape of galactic politics for generations to come.